Recording in progress.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is now 7:01. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2024, this meeting of the school committee will be conducted via hybrid participation. We will post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. With that, Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Barish?
Present.
Mayor Ballantyne? President Owen Campen? Mr. Green?
Present.
Mr. Bitton?
Here.
Ms. Bitton?
Present.
Dr. Ackman?
Here.
Dr. Phillips?
Here.
Chair Krebsen?
Here.
We have quorum.
All right, we will start with a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have interpreters this evening? Okay. Spanish, will you please introduce yourself? Okay, Portuguese, will you please introduce yourself?
Hello.
Hi, Erica.
Hi.
Hi,
Can you hear me?
please introduce yourself. Oh, I'm sorry.
I can hear you, whoever that
Portuguese,
was.
please
It's Karen.
introduce yourself.
Hi, quero Thelma. The hello, the Portuguese interpret for tonight.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Erica. This is Viviana O'Toole, the Spanish interpreter.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we have a few minutes to approve. I will entertain a motion.
Can you hear me?
Motion to approve. It's the June 10th and 17th minutes, right? 2024. Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by
Yes,
Mr. Green.
I can
Is
hear
there any
you.
discussion?
It's Karen.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Motion carries. That brings us to public comment. We do not have anyone sign up for public comment. That brings us to the report of the superintendent. Superintendent?
Thank you. I hope that as the summer draws close to, we all find ourselves restored, re-energized, and ready for another exciting and fulfilling school year. Here in the district, we have taken advantage of the quieter time of the year to regroup and plan for the upcoming year. As you know, we are in the midst of implementation of new academic and social-emotional curriculum. We are nearing the end of the feasibility phase of the MSBA project, school project building process. We are preparing to welcome new educators into our district, and of course, we're eager to welcome students and staff back to our buildings in just a few days. With this in mind, I want to share with you a snapshot of some of the critical plans we are advancing and the work that our SPS team engaged in over the summer. First, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our SPS staff and community partners who provided summer enrichment experiences for more than 1,500 students in our district. Across our own district-sponsored programs, the total summer enrollment this year was 1,480 students across multiple programs. SPELL, Summer of Yes, Middle School Robotics, the Somerville High School Summer School Program, Summer Success. There are many, many programs that the list goes on, and so I just wanted to highlight some of those. And additionally, we successfully partnered with 9 local nonprofits that provided valuable programming to Somerville students and the community. And among those were Somerville YMCA, Breakthrough Greater Boston, BAM and WOW, the Honk Music Program, the Pre-Apprentice Program, Somerville Parks and Rec, Junior Police Academy, Summer Art Programs, and Girl Star. We are very fortunate to have such a wide range of opportunities for our students, and yet, I know that there are still gaps that exist in terms of the demand versus available spots. We continue to research and explore options and opportunities to best meet the needs of our families. Our OST program, our OST team and program leaders are preparing a detailed report on these programs for one of the September school committee meetings. So please stay tuned for more details. I also want to share some school readiness events. Over the last 2 weeks, we had a number of kickoff meetings, professional development series, and our very first district Get Ready for School fair. It has been a whirlwind of activity, and I'm so inspired by the ideas, actions, and collaborative spirit that came out of these sessions. I want to sincerely thank members of our executive team, Dr. Boston Davis, Chief Personnel Officer Karen Woods, Chief of Staff and Strategy Amara Anosike, SFLC Director Ruth Santos, and the entire team for organizing these sessions. I also want to highlight the recent Ready for School fair that we had last week. Many of you were there. So last week we hosted our inaugural Get Ready for School fair, which was a huge success. Organized by our amazing SFLC team, the event included representation from every one of our schools and SPS departments, activities and giveaways for kids, frozen treats, and provided by Summer Promise, and much more. We had more than 1,200 attendees, not counting young toddlers and babies. This was our first time hosting such an event that showcased our entire district, and I can safely say that given the attendance rate and initial feedback, this will become an annual event. Thank you to everyone who made the event a huge success, and also thank you to all of you who were part of that process. In addition to this great event, as I said, we hosted a number of staff meetings and trainings that help set the tone for the upcoming school year. I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Boston Davis for a recap of these sessions.
Thank you through the chair, and good evening, everyone. So beginning in the week of August 14th, we had a number of annual kickoff meetings with our administrators and our educators. So over the last 2 weeks, we welcomed over 80 new educators and 8 new administrators at the new educators orientation. We met over the course of 2 days with all of our principals, and then over a course of 2 separate days, we met with our whole admin team. And then this week, we also will host our second annual district-wide convocation, which will bring together educators, staff, and administrators from every SPS site to kick off a new school year together. And our theme for this year, we really built off a theme which we started last year around this concept of Ubuntu, which is a Southern African term which literally translates into humanness. But it's more commonly known as I am because we are. And as we say those words, we think of the themes of collective and shared responsibility. And so that's our theme for the year, is really a shared responsibility. It was our focus in our kickoff meetings, and we used it, and we were able to get re-energized as a team to share in our commitment to our students' academic excellence and well-being. So we are also in the process of wrapping up our plans around the strategic plan and connecting that with each individual school's school improvement plan. And so we're going to work closely to align those things with our ongoing efforts in the district. With that, I'll pass it back to Superintendent Carmona.
Thank you. And as all of you are aware, in a couple of days, we'll be welcoming all our little ones. So big excitement coming in. We are really excited to have them back from grades 1 to 12. This Wednesday will be the first day. And then pre-K and K students will be coming on the 3rd. That will be the week after Labor Day, the day after Labor Day. So September 3rd. So our team will be out in all the schools over the next few weeks to welcome our school community back and help everyone readjust to a new year of teaching and learning. I'd like to ask Chief of Staff and Strategy Amara Anosike to provide more detail on how we work with the city's DPW to prepare our school buildings for this school year and how she will coordinate closely with the city moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Carmona. And also thanks to our city's departments, DPW and IAM teams.
Erica,
for
do you
all of
know
the
if
work that
they're
they did
having
to get all of our schools
connection
ready.
issues?
All of the buildings are ready to welcome folks back. Still, we'll continue to collaborate with them very closely. For instance, we'll be meeting monthly with each principal to track ongoing and longer-term building requests. We will also continue to share data with you regularly. Also, the city is preparing a school readiness report outlining all of their efforts to get our buildings ready for the school year. And that report will be ready by our next school committee meeting. In the meantime, I can share a brief update on certain projects that took place over the summer so that I can tee up that report for you all. At Winter Hill at Edgerly, renovations were completed, and we are excited to be able to house all of the Winter Hill classrooms, including the PK and K at the Edgerly this year. I know. We are very grateful to the Winter Hill staff for enduring another summer of relocation and renovation, and especially to the teachers and staff who graciously accommodated classroom moves to allow for the PK and K to join the rest of the grades at the Edgerly. In addition to the classroom renovations, we also added an accessible ramp from the Otis Street play lot into the building and conducted exterior work to address some of the water intrusion. As you know, this summer, we also put a lot of work in to address transportation needs for certain families at Winter Hill. I'm happy to share an update that we have connected with all families who were identified as needing bus transportation, and we are able to accommodate all the families who did accept a spot from that list. We'll be utilizing one MLE bus and also contracting with MUN Transportation to provide 2 additional smaller vans to accommodate the remaining students. And transportation will begin as of the first day of school. Finally, I want to provide a brief update on the district's production kitchen. As you may know, this kitchen had previously been housed at Sycamore Street and has not been in operation since the building closure in June of 2023. Over the last school year, we were able to identify the Argenziano to serve as the new production kitchen. Due to several factors with construction schedule and supply chain constraints, the production kitchen will not be complete until January. This means that our Food and Nutrition Services Department will continue to face some constraints in their normal operations and will have to eliminate some of the healthier scratch-cooked meals from their menu this semester. This, of course, is not the update we wanted to provide. However, we continue to work with the city and to find any opportunities to get this online sooner and to expedite this process. In positive news, last week, the City Council approved funds to move forward with the project. And as the city prepares the school readiness reports, we'll be able to share even more where that project stands. And so, Dr. Carmona, should I kick it back to you for MSBA? Okay.
So the MSBA process, I'll just give you an update on that. And we continue to experience forward momentum for the Winter Hill and potentially the Brown School Building project. Over the summer, we worked with the city to ensure that we have everything in place for success. 2 major milestones remain in the MSBA eligibility phase. The capital maintenance questionnaire is due August 30th, and the City Council vote to authorize funding for feasibility study by end of November. So we're on track for both and expect to complete the eligibility phase before our November deadline. Also, to support transparency into the process, the city has launched a project website at somerville.gov/MSBA. The website was created with significant input from and collaboration with our SPS communication team. And I'm going to give you also an update on the strategic plan. I know that this is a process that has happened with and in collaboration with many stakeholders in our district. So this again has been a truly collaborative effort across teams and communities, and will develop a clear vision for our district. As a quick reminder, we conducted 42 focus groups discussions, several root cause analysis sessions, numerous strategy meetings, and received extensive feedback on implementation strategy, key measures, targets, and feasibility. In April, we presented initially entry plan findings before this committee and received overwhelming positive and constructive feedback from most of you. This summer, we completed a near final draft of the strategic plan with extensive input from various stakeholders. We also contracted with a graphic designer who is in the process of bringing the plan to life. And we will be presenting the plan to you for review at the next school committee meeting. We are incredibly proud of the strategic plan process that has taken place thus far, and we are confident that it will lay a solid foundation for a cohesive strategy for the district in the next 3 to 5 years. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for that report. Are there questions or comments from the report? Mr. Bitton and then Ms. Parrish.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, just so much gratitude for all of the great work that you have done over the summer. I'm particularly excited to have the students reunited at the Winter Hill community reunited at one building, and appreciate the resilience of the educators and the students and families that they've continued to show. So much from what you've said I want to reflect on, but I will just go on to my question, which is, I've heard from some members of our school community concern about, and maybe confusion around, what is available for our football teams to be able to practice on our brand new field, Rivas Field, behind the high school, and particularly just questions around whether students are being disallowed from using their football equipment at the field. So any light you can shed on that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Ramona?
Thank you, Liron, for bringing this up. Yeah, there is a challenge. I think that we built a brand new high school and beautiful facilities, and the field is one of those. And unfortunately, at the current moment, we find ourselves not in a position to be able to use the field, the synthetic field that is. The answer that I gotten is that the equipment that will be on top of the, I think it's called the sleds and the chutes that are going to be on the field will ruin the seams of the turf. That's the feedback that I gather. When this was brought up to our attention by the athletic director, he reached out to both the manufacturers of the turf as well as of the equipment, and they say that basically that equipment is designed for that kind of turf, and also the turf is under warranty. So we brought this issue up to our DPW partners, and the answer has been no in regards to the use of the field at this point. I'm still looking for answers. I reached out to the mayor to find out why that is the case. I think a sticky point for me is the building, again, is a brand new building and is designed for us to utilize it in a way that actually meets the needs of our students. You mentioned the fact that that equipment is essential to create and bring the conditions for students to be able to practice the activity of tackling in a safe way. And so by not doing that, that will actually put our kids in a disadvantage, and also possible injuries if they don't develop those skill sets. So right now, we are awaiting a decision from both the mayor and the DPW team, but it is not acceptable. I think the fact that we have created a new, we have built new equipment and new conditions for the spaces for the students to use it, and we don't have access to that, that is problematic.
Where were they previously using this equipment somewhere else? Or is the
They were
equipment itself-
using it in different fields, but again, they were not turf fields, so this is new to us, the turf field. I forgot what's the name of the other.
They were using it at Dillboy, which is under construction now and no longer an opportunity. We're not.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Dillboy's not an option. Got it. Okay, that is frustrating. Mr. Bichon, did you want to follow up? And then Mr. Green?
Thank you. Quick follow-up. Yeah, the idea that we couldn't use our brand-new football field for football is concerning. And maybe I'll connect with colleagues about whether this might be added to our facilities and maintenance joint committee with City Council, and ask the mayor's team to follow up. But I agree that this is not in the best interest of our students, and especially if the manufacturers of both the turf and the equipment say it's okay. I'm confused about why this wouldn't be allowed. So anyway, I'll cede the floor. Thanks.
Mr. Green?
I have a really quick follow-up, and then I have my own question. The quick follow-up is, if Dillboy is out of commission, where are they going to be playing their games this season?
Say it again.
Will they play their games if Dillboy's out of commission?
I have no idea. I would have to find out. I think the thing that has been brought up to me right now as an area of concern is the practice, but I don't know.
Ms. Parrish, do you know?
I cannot say definitively, but I think that they have used the Dillboy Auxiliary Field for practice, which is the grass fields next to the stadium. So it's possible that the stadium will be available, but not the adjacent grass field. But I just know that there are 2 Dillboy fields, so that might be part of the confusion.
Okay. It sounds like we'll have to get back to you with an answer. Did you have a new question?
I did.
Well, then I will take you after Ms. Parrish.
Sure.
Ms. Parrish and then Mr. Green.
Thank you. I happened to run into a family that attended the Get Ready for School event, and they said it was terrific. They have a rising kindergartner, and I was just curious. The turnout sounds spectacular. I mean, 1,200 people, that's amazing. Do you have any sense of whether they were mostly people who have children already enrolled in school, or if community members saw this as an opportunity to sort of become acquainted with the district if they have younger children or maybe don't even have children yet?
I mean, I can speculate on an answer, but a part of the counting was based on who comes through the door. I know that I saw many families that actually I recognize, and I believe most of them are families in our system, but I don't have any specifics as to the percentages. So I don't know if.
Thank you, through the chair. I would anecdotally say the same thing. What I watched, which was awesome, was I watched families come in and go straight to health services and say, my child has this allergy, how do I work, and then go straight to their school table and meet their principal. And so I sat with human resources, and I sat with health services, and I sat with special education. So I sat with a few different tables, and I noticed that. So from what I saw, it seemed to be, but this is very anecdotal, I don't have the specific numbers, but it did seem to be families who were already a part of our system, but maybe younger siblings as well, so.
Yeah, follow up?
Thanks. Just a quick follow-up to say it's awesome that they were able to do that, and I just want to say kudos to whoever had this idea to do this, because they can't. Otherwise, it's a phone call to this person and then an email to that person, and it could take, a week to have all those exchanges that might have taken 20 minutes. So awesome, love it.
It really was a great event, as someone who attended. Mr. Green?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, it was an amazing event. I think probably the most diverse turnout in terms of age, ethnicities, languages I've seen in my 9.5 years in school committee. So phenomenal job, and everyone should be proud. But going back to my favorite topic of being frustrated with the city, I get that construction overruns happen and supply chains are an issue. But the fact that the city didn't bother to get permission for the city council to pay for the move till last week, there's no excuse for that. Maybe there is. Maybe there's some reason that I would love the city to tell us why the thing they told us would be started over the summer didn't get financial authorization till the end of August, and now it won't happen till January.
So I believe that Rich Raish is joining us this evening via Zoom. Is he here? Because that feels like a question for Rich Raish. Rich, did you hear the question? Rich, can you hear me? Okay. We'll give you a minute to troubleshoot, and we will come back.
Kara, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
If you speak up a little bit more, we can hear you, but not quite. We can almost hear you. You want to try again, Rich?
The city's having Zoom issues.
I can't hear you. I've got the Gov TV on to watch the meeting, but the meeting is not coming through on Zoom. And so there's probably a 90-second delay between the two.
Okay. Well, we just heard you say that. Did you hear the question that was for you?
He cannot hear us via Zoom. Can he call him? So why don't I call him, and then he's
Sure.
texting me right now,
Call
so
him.
we can. So he
We're going
can
to hear the
respond.
phone, and well, we can hear him on there. He just can't hear us.
Hey, Ruben.
Hi, Rich, I can hear you.
We can hear.
Hi, Rich.
Ruben? Yeah. The meetings not coming through on Zoom at all. I put up the TV so I can hear you guys. It's delayed.
Okay, so can you say something right now through the TV just to see what's the delay through Zoom?
All right. Ruben, I'm talking to you right now.
I can hear you through this TV now. It's clear, loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Wow. Wow.
I think we should just table this and.
Yeah, I still have the problem that we don't have any audio on Zoom. So I'd either have to listen from Ruben's phone.
All right, we're going to come back to this. Mr. Green.
Okay, but then how are we going to discuss the Cummings?
It is a good question. Do you want to text him and ask him if it's possible to come?
I don't think he's around.
Is he not in?
Chair, would it be
Recording in progress.
to have a short recess to work out the technical issues before moving on to those topics?
The problem is I'm not sure that they're fixable at the moment. I appreciate the thought.
Thank you.
Okay. That would be great, thank you. Okay. All right, see you soon. Bye. He's going to be here in 15 minutes.
Okay. All right, moving on. Were there more questions or comments for the superintendent about the district report? Dr. Heckman.
Thank you, and this may be for Mr. Raish when he gets here, but through the chair, do we know if they're, specifically at the Edgerly, and I think there was one other school, I don't remember right now, potentially the Argenziano, where rat mitigation was put in? Because my personal goal for this year is to not hear stories from children about rats in their school. Like, that is, I think, a reasonable goal.
Does anyone have any intel on this, or should we wait for Mr. Raish?
And Amara, do we?
I think it would be great to wait for Mr. Raish because we don't have an update on that.
All right, we will save that for our list for Mr. Raish. And Ms. Baton.
Thank you, through you to the chair. My question was about the status of the advisory committee. Okay. And is there a particular timeline or a date? I know that it got kind of pushed out again to get more representation, particularly, I think, from the South Asian community, because there were some emails about that. I'd love to just get an update on that. This is for the future, what's going to be the scope of, is it just Winter Hill? Is it Winter Hill and Brown, and where it might be for the context?
I understand the question. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer. Dr. Carmona, have you heard any more on that?
Amara, do you want to give an update? Yeah.
I would honestly wait for the city on that, but I don't know. Communications Director Jackie Peaks is here, and she's been in meetings with them on when they potentially would start, but I know that they haven't met yet in terms of the construction advisory group.
Ms. Patone, you want to follow up?
Yes, through you. Can there be a request that there's something written up, a memo or something just explaining what's going on and making that information public?
Yep.
Through the chair, I apologize, I was multitasking. Could somebody repeat the question?
We were just asking about the timeline of the advisory committee about the buildings.
I missed today's meeting because I had a conflict, so I don't have an update if things changed, but I think the loose timeline was to have the committee formed in very early September and start working in earnest by mid-September, and part of that is because we know that when we return to school, we'll have more direct communication with students, families, and educators to make sure that we've done as much as we can to get representative voices at the table.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Just in the spirit of transparency, as the school committee representative to that advisory committee, I was informed I was on it. I'm sorry, not informed I was on it. The consultant reached out to me on July 22nd to tell me that they'd be in touch in the next couple of weeks to talk about a timeline. I have not heard from them since then. So,
May I answer that through the chair? After July, the initial deadline was in late July, but because of the timeline with when it was originally opened, we had extended it, and then it just being the summer, I think the consultant's been doing additional work to gather as many inclusive voices as possible. And I think just recognizing that it's late August and some staff and some folks who had applied were on vacation, they may just be a little bit delayed in that. But again, early September is, I think, when you can really expect it to be happening.
to be clear, I didn't expect to hear anything in late August. I know how late August is. Just putting out the timeline for my colleagues.
Understood.
Dr. Phillips, and then Ms. Paton.
Thanks, through you, Chair. Do we happen to know how many families have volunteered to serve on this committee?
Through the chair, again, I missed the most recent meeting, so I don't know if there's been an update on the numbers. I think the total number of applicants was a little bit over 20. I don't know how many of those offhand were families versus educators. But again, I think we're kind of all hoping that with the start of school and folks being back, we'll be able to get some other engagement, because from the most recent meeting I attended, the consultant is working to identify families from that and educators from that initial applicant list. But if there are others who are not represented on that initial list, for example, I don't know if this is true or not, but if educators are not in that list, we would want to try to get some folks on that list in September. So there might be some more added as well.
Ms. Paton?
Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to thank, it sounds like Mr. Green is going to represent the school committee, so I want to thank him for his, because I hadn't heard that, so that's good news.
My apologies for not announcing that.
Yeah, and I'm assuming we're going to get the whole list all at once, besides, it's like who's the city council, et cetera, because it shouldn't be in drips and drabs, everything, I would imagine.
I would also assume that, but we'd have to talk to the consultant, because my only job was to assign someone from the school committee. But I'm certainly happy to ask. Mr. Green?
I just, I feel like every time we talk about this advisory group, I feel obligation to point out, we could have formed this last summer, and also have been 15 months at minimum when the Winter Hill was closed before this advisory committee convenes. And again, just one more place where the city's lack of urgency just shines through.
Yes. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, that brings us to the personnel report. Is there anything you'd like to highlight?
Yes, there is. I'd like to highlight some patterns that we have noticed in our personnel. So I want to share a report that was put together by Mariana in the HR department. So we wanted to welcome 2 new assistant principals and 3 new administrators that were promoted from within. We continue to grow our paraprofessionals to become teachers, 5 so far. That is great news. A system that builds within is a healthy system, so that's exciting. And our leaves continue to grow, our parental leaves, and so that's good. Is that right? Because our young parents are taking advantage of the system we have in place, but it also puts a little bit of a stress in the system to make sure that we find folks who can actually sub. But that is that's how the system was designed. We also hire an automotive and electrical instructors. That has been difficult, so woo-hoo. Very excited about those two new positions that were hired. And we're almost 100% filled for the first day of school with just a few positions, which we are actively interviewing for. Yeah. We're still looking for a CFO. If anyone knows someone, please, any leads, we are desperate for. And also, we hire per diem substitutes, and we continue to do that, and we'll continue to do that throughout the year. So again, we are poised to have all our positions completed. Some retirements in July: Susan Fotherhill in 4th grade at the East, Francis Carino, grade 1 at the Winter Hill, and Maureen Foley, principal account clerk. We also have some August retirements: Lina Mulia and Deborah Farenga. New administrators: Christina Chevalier and Benjamin Parad. He is actually the assistant principal at the East, and Christina, assistant principal at the Capuano. And also we have some internal promotions. Christopher Ames, who is the principal at the Brown, was a former assistant principal at the Winter Hill. Isabel Barros now is the assistant principal at the Winter Hill, and Dorothy Scali is the SPED department coordinator. And we have some paraprofessionals that moved to teacher positions: Gina, Natalie, Eugenio Polino, Keegan Blees, Cody Turgeon, and Kashima Riley. So congratulations to all our new paraprofessionals that have become teachers, and that's the end of the report. Good news, good news.
Very exciting to hear that we are almost 100% staffed for the first day of school. Are there any questions or comments about the personnel report? Seeing none, we have some subcommittee reports to approve. I will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the report of the Joint School Building Committee for May 29, 2024, and the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee meeting of June 18, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Bitone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And then we also need to do the bill rolls.
Move to approve the May local bill rolls.
I have a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Dr. Ackman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to the superintendent evaluation. Dr. Phillips, did you want to give us a summary of where we are?
Yeah, totally. So let's start by just grounding ourselves in why we evaluate the superintendent. Reason number one, we have 4 main roles. One of them is hiring, firing, and managing the superintendent. Second reason, we're required by regulation to evaluate the superintendent every year. And number 3, as a district, we want to practice what we preach and evaluate our superintendent just like he evaluates our principals, just like they evaluate our educators, and we want to all be aligned. So we are embarking now on the tail end of our first year evaluation cycle. We are about to start the summative evaluation. There are a whole bunch of documents in your packet. There are 5 at the top and 1 at the bottom. This should be everything that you need to complete your part of the superintendent's evaluation. I'm going to talk through timeline and instructions now, and then in a second I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Carmona to talk through anything that he wants to in terms of the evidence he wants to present to us in his end of cycle report today, and then there will be an opportunity for questions and discussion. But again, we are not evaluating the superintendent today, we are just getting evidence. So, what is our timeline? I'm speaking from the very first document in the packet. It says Superintendent Evaluation, School Year 24-25. So today we're kicking things off. Dr. Carmona is going to give us his end of cycle report. We are all going to get our evaluation forms with the indicators that we've agreed to score him on highlighted. That's the Word document in your packet. You're going to have from today till the 23rd of September to complete your own individual evaluation using the form and get it to me. There are instructions on this sheet about how to fill out the form. You kind of start in the middle and work to the end, and then you go back to the beginning. You're going to be evaluating the superintendent based on the evidence he's provided us in his goals update presentation and his end of cycle report, and you're going to do that using the MASC rubric that's in your packet. So you're going to do all that by the 23rd, and you're going to get it to me. Between the 23rd and the 7th, I'm going to compile them all into one evaluation from the school committee. To compile all our individual scores on all the individual indicators, we're going to use the mode, which if you remember back to like 6th grade math, it's the most common response. That's going to take out outliers. So if you're like, I hate evaluation, I just give the superintendent a 5 on everything, or you really got an axe to grind and I'm going to give the superintendent a 1 on everything, we're going to knock those scores out completely probably, and we're going to go with the most common responses. For the qualitative comments, I'm going to code it like a qualitative researcher and look for themes and present examples of those themes. We will get that all back on the 7th. The 7th is when we are actually doing the evaluation. That's the discussion. We're going to vote. We're going to agree on the score. So that's the end of the first year. While this stuff is happening this fall, because the superintendent wants to get his evaluation in line with the principal evaluations, we're going to hustle on getting the goals and focus indicators for the next evaluation cycle going. Laura Patone has agreed to help get a draft together with Dr. Carmona that we will present to you on the 7th, right after the evaluation. So we're going to roll right into teeing up year 2. We'll approve those goals in the end of October, nod to you all who wanted to push things out a little bit. And then we'll do the formative evaluation around February, and then towards the end of the year, we're gonna wrap up year 2. Are there questions about the timeline or the process or what you have to do by September 23rd?
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, I think you can continue. Or did you want to pass it over?
Yeah, I'm going to pass it to Dr. Carmona to tee up anything you want about kind of the evidence you've given us, and everyone in the committee a chance to ask questions, get clarification, so you can use that evidence.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you to our vice chair for having provided a comprehensive plan to really make sense of the evaluation process. And thank you for the operator's manual, if you will, which will allow us to kind of make sense of the documents that I share with you. Before we discuss the artifacts that are in front of you, or that you had at some point in your hands, I want to share a parallel process that happens in our city, so you understand the connection between my goals and the goals in regular education as well as in our district. So typically, principals and department heads begin by assessing educators' strengths and areas for growth through the evaluation process, and usually that's a self-evaluation. Although we could not do that this time due to the tight deadlines, I'm going to follow a similar process next time around. So usually educators set the goals based on school data or student data, and that results in something called a student learning goal, which is, there is one student learning goal in my document, and I'll walk you through that. They also identify areas of professional growth, and that's what leads to a professional learning goal. And so my goals that are outlined in the document that I gave you on September 18, does that. It tells you there are 3 goals that we established. One was basically creating an entry plan and understanding the district and actually identifying the strengths and weaknesses, and that was goal number 1, an entry plan. The second one was goal number 2, which is kind of the quote-unquote student learning goal. And that was basically about setting or keeping the momentum of the district. And so that goal was around 2 big things. One is understanding instruction and the tools that we use to measure instruction or to assess instruction. And another layer of that goal was professional learning communities, making sure that our systems to collaborate and to have a strong, robust system is in place. So those are the 2 kind of sides of the coin on the student learning goal. And the third goal was about professional learning, which was already determined by MASS, which was shared with you, which basically my goal was to participate in the MASS induction program. So those were the 3 basic goals that we have. That was on the document on the 18. I shared with you the goals, the things that I wanted to do. And then on June 13, I shared with you another document. And that document outlined those same goals and some key actions that I engaged with through our entire district and our executive team. And those key actions I shared them with you on June 13. You gave me some feedback around the formative process, and you gave me some feedback around that. And now we are in the summative stages of the process. So while little has changed, because again, June 13 was pretty much a month ago, now we're actually going to a summative process. Now, it was somewhat of a truncated cycle because we just didn't have the time, is that right? And so there are some things I want to highlight on that process, because between the last time that I saw you and now, we have been able to actually gather some information or fine-tune some of the processes that we're building. So some specific developments, such as progress on the strategic plan, updates to district procedures and policies, a new improvement plan template created by our data team, and a data dashboard for live data access. So you're also now being introduced to an end-of-cycle summative report. That's the one that I share with you today. And that document is about the standards, and those are the standards for effective administrators. It's basically the document that we use in the entire state to say a good principal, a good superintendent does X, Y, and Z under these standards. There are 4 big standards: leadership, operations, family, and professional culture. Under those standards, we picked a few indicators: instruction, curriculum. There are some other indicators that you have again laid out on that document that says superintendent's performance rating for the different standards. So that's the one document that might look a little bit different, but basically what that document highlights is the different behaviors and actions that are in place right now that meet those categories, that meet the category of the indicators of instruction, for example, or curriculum. And if you look at them, it kind of gives you an idea why those are important. And I wanted to emphasize a few of them because they are critical for our district. Under Standard 1, the phase of implementation of multiple programs that has been led by Jess and her team, Dr. Boston Davis, has focused on our PD support and monitoring systems. Also, we have the Heal for Literacy Needs Assessment, and that has provided insights to enhance our instructional systems, particularly in the area of reading. So that's a big document, probably close to 400 interviews and focus groups, as well as classroom observations. The math implementation plan, also, there is a document that I share, an artifact that tells you what's the implementation phases that we have across the district. And also the iReady, the DIBELS, and the PELI new assessment tools or revised assessment tools. That is a refinement of what was in place. The DIBELS is a new, different DIBELS. We used to have a portion of the DIBELS. What we have this year is a more fully comprehensive DIBELS tool. Under Standard 2, I want you to pay attention to the evidence of the strengths. There is a risk assessment that I recommended for the district, and it's really important that you understand that risk assessment was done with 2 things in mind. One is there is a transition. Obviously, our CFO is not here. And second, I have heard from different sources, or for every time I ask around, and folks said, we need this, we need more of this, we need more of that. I'm always wondering, wait, Esther is not here. What is our soundness in terms of our financial standing? It's hard to identify that because we know that there are money streams that are not coming, and also we will have negotiations with the SAU. So it's really important that we have a real understanding of the financial landscape. So the company that is doing it is known for that work. They are the ones who found the $2 million or $12 million that were missing in one of the,
it was in Brockton, I believe.
Brockton, yeah. So they are the company who are doing the work, and I'm in constant feedback with them. And so that's one of the data points of evidence that I have put in place to support our financial systems. And then the other piece around Standard 2, which is operations, is the central office reorganization. That seemed like happened a while ago. And then a huge part of this is also the strategic plan, which is like, how do we coordinate all our strengths and make sure that we have a clear, viable way to move in the future. Under Standard 3, I just wanted to highlight also we have SFLC is really a very robust and a strong system for support to families. I am in constant communication with the director of SFLC. She has been strategically moved to part of the executive team to continue the efforts of families to center that. And so that is one addition in terms of the repertoire of choices that we have made as a district, intentional choices. And there are a few things that under the new SFLC, or the new changes that SFLC has done are very meaningful. I think the issue around social stories is very powerful. You can click on that link if you have the electronic version. And then the last one, standard 4, is about continuous learning. Do I have facilitated a culture of continuous learning? And each and every one of those items in there are really, in my mind, clear examples of a strong presence under continuous learning. The work that is done under the DILT, which is, again, coordinated by Dr. Jessica Boston Davis, that continues to be at the center of the work that we do. Has been in place, but we have new enhancements around that. Also, Open Architects Dashboard, that is a huge tool for assessing data, having data at the fingertips. Educators will be able to use that information to assess our students' growth and determine, of course, how do we respond to the kids' needs. Instructional rounds continues to be a work that we started last year. We will continue, and we are collaborating with the Boston College Lynch Academy, and that work, again, is being solidified, and I feel that that's also an example of the work that demonstrate that I have some degree of proficiency under Standard 4. And then we are also working to build the instructional, the common planning time, the CPT plan. I put a link in that document. That is a really robust system of collaboration between teachers and administrators to continue to enhance the professional learning of all our staff. So those are the things that I wanted to point out in that document that might be a little bit new to you, but all those documents in some degree are touching up on each other, and there is a little bit of redundancy on that. That is supposed to be the way we do it with teachers as well. When we ask a teacher, if you have evidence of one indicator, if it touches up on another indicator, use that. And I always think just one data point or 2 data points is plenty, so we don't end up with a lot of things and not enough quality. And so the same thing I would say, we have a lot of information in this document, but I think you need to kind of go through it, and then if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. But I think you have 3 comprehensive documents that will give you an idea of where myself and my office stand.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any immediate questions or comments? I know that was a lot to take in. And we will be discussing this again. Dr. Ackman.
Thank you. Through the chair to the vice chair and the superintendent, I appreciate the advanced timeline. I appreciate the clear expectations and communications. I think it's indicative of what you've just been describing. And as the person who has led this, I know how hard it is. And so, again, just thank you, and thank you for clear deadlines and timelines and clear data that is input into the things that we need to extract it from. Like, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I cannot take credit for the full, this is a compilation of pretty much the work that happens through all the departments. And also I have to say that the vice chair actually was able to make sense of something that is really complex. I thought, usually you come into a system of evaluation that is already in place. This is kind of been glued together by, with duct tape and some Gorilla Glue. But I think it's a testament to the collective effort that has happened. Yeah.
Duct tape can fix a lot of things, for the record, but I know what you mean. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, there's nothing more then, correct, Dr. Phillips? We're just taking it all in at this point. All right, I see we have Mr. Rashier, So I will jump back to the other questions we had from Mr. Race, and then I will take things out of order and do the coming school renovations so we can get everything out of the way that we need Mr. Race for. So our first question for you, I believe, came from Mr. Green, so I will let him repeat his question.
Sure, I will withhold the rant because everyone in the one's already heard it. But we were always under the impression that the production kitchen was going to be done over the summer, and I get that things happen. But there are always be things we can't control in any of these building processes happen on. But the things we can control, like when we ask the city council for the funding to do it, didn't happen on a project we thought was going to be done in late August until late August. So what was the delay there?
Through the chair, there actually wasn't a delay in asking for the funding. There was more a delay in the design and the development of the plans. There are a number of issues that we needed to track down, both in terms of the technical aspects of the work, the plumbing, the electric, ventilation, and the fact that we had the same team working on that project as we did on the Edgerly Phase 2. So we were just spread too thin, and we didn't get all of the bid documents ready in time until July. And then we didn't get the cost estimate back until just a couple of weeks ago. And so we went, essentially we didn't get the cost estimate until 2 weeks before City Council came back from recess. And so we asked for immediate consideration, was granted, and we moved on as quickly a timeline as we could. We didn't waste any time anyway. Frankly, we kind of knew it was going to be a yes, and so we were working through all the procurement details anyway. This unfortunately was as fast as we could deliver this, given staffing issues.
Follow-up?
Thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense. But of course, for me, it raises the question, as the construction and the logistics and the building issues aren't going to get simpler anytime soon, is staffing adequate to the moment, or is there something else we need to be looking at, either school district side or city side, to make sure we have the bandwidth to do all the work we need to do as fast as we can possibly do it?
Yeah, through the chair, I've worked with the mayor's office to triage capital projects workload, and this is at the top of it, along with Edgerly and a few others. We've put a couple of other projects on the back burner, none of them associated with the schools. We're full steam ahead. Our concentration is on wrapping up the chiller at the Kennedy and starting the retro commissioning at the Argenziano and Capuano.
And then Dr. Ackman, you had another question before we go on to the comings.
Hi, thank you for coming, Mr. Raish. I am curious, with the renovations, specifically Winter Hill at the Edgerly, but also it may have been Kennedy, there was another school. I'm curious about rats and what has been done. Because as I mentioned, my goal for the year is to not have a student see a rat in their building. And so I'm wondering what was done to help make that goal a reality in 2024-25.
Through the chair, unfortunately, I'm not the one to answer that. Our environmental health coordinator, Colin Ziegler, and the DPW are the ones leading the fight on rats, I guess. There weren't any, we never witnessed any at the Edgerly over construction this summer. And to my knowledge, there weren't any at the Kennedy, but we've been up in the penthouse at the Kennedy, and so they don't really get up there very much.
So we'll have to investigate that otherwise.
To clarify, you have no updates on whether any of the construction, anything was done to prevent rats from coming into the school?
Through the chair, nothing that Capital Projects was doing over this this summer was towards that. I do think that ISD, the Health Department, and DPW were doing a few things, but I can't speak to any of the details.
Okay. Dr. Cremona, did you want to respond? And then...
Can I just, yeah, so I know I got an email today from a principal about the East continues to be a place where we have presence of rats. And I'm very frustrated about that. I know that the DPW is working on that, and I hear they are doing the best that they can. I just think that I have to find another alternative to address the issue, because like what I heard today was like, rats on, where still the presence of rats in the east is an issue. And so I am really frustrated about that. I think that the feedback that I get is, we need to make sure that the teachers are not having any open containers. I understand that. This is the summer. There hasn't been any, and we still have a significant presence from what I gathered today. Amar?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I would also add that we were told that DPW was looking to purchase black boxes and A24 traps. And so the last I heard from them was that they requested the funding, and they have to find out about how many, where they're going to allocate and distribute them across the city. And so I have requested that they provide an update in the school readiness report. And so hopefully we'll have something more definitive by then. We also heard from a principal at another school within the district that those had been helpful for her school, at the Argenziano actually. And so I'm hopeful that if we are allotted some of those, then it can improve the process.
Great. Hopefully we can look for that update. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah.
And then Mr. Green?
Yeah, through the chair, I just would like to echo the superintendent's frustration. I think it is a very, children are going to have food, teachers are going to have food. Any building where humans are during the day is going to have food. It is an unreasonable request to ask them to not have it. There are reasonable accommodations that can be made. I do firmly believe that it is a reasonable request that our students not see rats in their school. And I will hammer that to anyone who will listen. I didn't realize until the very end of last school year how bad it was. And these are the schools, the East, the Edgerly, that are, I could throw a baseball to. East Somerville is the forgotten part of the city, and most of the time that doesn't faze me, but it's pretty depressing. And I'm glad to know that there's, cause for optimism. And as soon as we hear if those didn't get allocated to those buildings, please let me know, because I will be advocating quite hard to make sure. Thank you for sharing your frustration. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Green?
Thank you. I apparently am less patient than Dr. Ackman. We've been promised a memo by our next meeting outlining all the things that were done over the summer, which is great. I want exhaustive, annoying, stupid amounts of detail about the rat prevention or
mitigation.
Thank you, that's what I was looking for. Efforts. Also, and to discuss them and explain them, I'm going to go ahead and request that the DPW commissioner attend our next meeting so we can ask those questions. Because Dr. Hyman put it rightly. It is not acceptable to ask kids to not eat during the school day. That's just ridiculous, a non-starter. And so let's work together to find actual solutions rather than passing blame to our students and educators.
Dr. Phillips?
Sorry, just to pile on to that request, if we're inviting the DPW commissioner to come before us, it would be great to talk to her about the fields and the football practice as well.
You are not wrong. In fact, you are correct. Was there anything else on this topic? Okay, seeing nothing, we will move on to the coming school renovation, since we have Mr. Raish here to discuss that with us. We have a motion that the city is looking for from us. There was also an email from the city that came to us with some background information. I don't know if that ended up in the packet, I'm now realizing.
No.
Did it not? Okay.
No, I don't think I saw it.
Hold on. My apologies. Perhaps it only went to me. Okay, so I have something, and I'm just trying to figure out.
We got something on 8/22nd?
Yes, that's what I'm, from Neha?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the memo.
That's what
that
I'm referring
should
to.
be there.
Okay, so you should have it in your email, from 8/22, from Neha Sinj in the city. Okay, so that was some of the background information that we have. Questions, comments? Dr. Phillips?
Through you, Chair, I don't think this is the city's intent at all. But I do want all of us to be clear that, right, we're not releasing the Cummings to the city. We are simply giving them permission, should we approve this motion, to have an overnight warming center at the Cummings. Am I correct there?
That is my understanding. Mr. Raish, you have?
Through the chair and on behalf of the administration, yes, that is correct. I mean, the plan is to keep the Cummings available as emergency swing space for the Brown or any other school for that matter. There are no plans to do anything else with that building other than keep it there until such time as both the Winter Hill and the Brown have a permanent home, by which time we probably need swing space for the East and the Argenziano and the Healy. So the longer term plan is to keep that in there. The only request is that we use 2 of the rooms, the ones that were previously used as the Parent Info Center and the Family Resource Center, which are those 2 larger classrooms that are at grade on the Prescott Street side of the building adjacent to that play yard. Those 2 would be used as overnight warming center. The city contracts out the administration of those, just as we did last year at the Armory. So there would be staff on
recording in
site
progress
there during that time in the evenings, and those would only be used during the evenings. It would also, from at least the perspective of myself and speaking on behalf of the DPW commissioner, give us an excuse to start clearing spaces out in that area and facilitate a quicker move-in for an emergency condition, because almost the entire building is just filled with stuff right now, and there are a few maintenance items that just get deferred because there's nothing happening in the building. So we would start chipping away at some of those items.
Ms. Barish?
For some reason, I'm not able to connect to my email right now. Is the motion somewhere? Because it's not on the, usually the motions are on the agenda, but I don't see the motion.
It's in the packet.
Oh, okay. I guess I missed it.
I had Ms. Patone, and then Mr. Green, and then Mr. Bitone. Ms. Patone?
Through the chair, I just had a question about the stuff in the building. Is this any school stuff, or is it stuff from the city when the city used it for as a construction management area? I'm just wondering if administration is going to have to go look at this stuff and see if it's useful, or I don't know.
Through the chair, it is an amalgamation of all of the above. The music department still has a large number of instruments there. Whether they are still good instruments or not, I don't know. There is still some athletic equipment left over from the high school construction interim conditions. But then a whole bunch of it is COVID-19 stuff. There are expired masks, expired hand wash stations, expired, like the portable hand wash stations. It is also where we've got all of the large portable ventilation units that we had in the classrooms that no one seemed to want to keep in their classrooms. So it's a whole bunch of different things.
Did you want to respond?
Yeah, well, it's not a response. I know that there's a room that has some clothing from the SFLC to help families. I heard you a minute ago, Rich. You said that the plan is to create some swing space at the Commons. I was under the impression that the place was uninhabitable. That was what we kind of knew. The last that I knew was that it was not available for any occupancy. And so I am glad to hear that it's going to be used as a swing space. I feel like a little degree of malpractice on my part when I don't have a possible solution for the Brown or for any building if anything happens. And so I'm desperate looking for what is the option when in times that we are not in crisis to identify that location. So I'm glad to hear that it also will be. So can you tell me a little bit about the timeline around that? Because my understanding was that it was off the options and it was uninhabitable, and so I am hearing something different, and I'm really curious as to what is that.
So through the chair, to be clear, that building was built in phases over the course of a couple decades. The wing of the school that fronts on School Street currently is not any place I would put any occupants other than my construction teams that, it's just better than being out on the streets. We've got a number of leaks in the stairwells on that side of the building, and I would not let any civilians into that side of the building. The side of the building that is on Prescott Street has no issues. And for this, we're only looking to activate those two at-grade classrooms, and there's offices next door that we would allow the company that's running the service to use as additional space. So if you look up on the screen, basically it's well, I guess the colors don't show up all that great, but the areas hatched in green, sort of blue-green, is the area that we would activate right now. So on sort of the bottom of the page and to the left, those two large classrooms and those offices there. At the moment, there's too much equipment in the gym, and also we know that the floor in that gym contains asbestos and is compromised in some places. So once we get in there, we'd like to start abating that asbestos floor, so then if we wanted to, we could activate that gym for some other interim purpose. We would keep people out of all of the red area, which includes the lower level classrooms that are, sort of, scroll back down. All that lower level, we would keep people out of that area. Those three classrooms that are sort of along the parking lot, those are all fine. There would be no reason to not use them, but we don't need them for this purpose. I just keep the population out of that area. It was really that northern wing. So if you scroll down to the other pages, we wouldn't let anybody into the second floor on either wing. It's the second floor on the School Street wing that's got more of the problems with the water intrusion in both of the stairwells. And then the third floor, which is only the School Street wing, has water intrusion in all four of those classrooms. So we'd start, chipping away at that, so that we could occupy it more quickly if we needed to.
Okay, I believe, did you want to follow up? I have you on my list. Did you want to follow up?
Yeah, so I'm thinking a couple of things. One is there a timeline for that, or how is this being conceived? Because I know that we are bringing this off the queue and making it available. And so I was under the impression that the entire building was uninhabitable. And so now I just want to get a sense of what is the progression as to how we're planning to do that. Also knowing that we have many things in the queue right now, that the Edgerly continues to be a place where we are investing significantly and making sure that it's ready. And not to mention the work at the Sycamore building. So how is this also going to be coordinated at the same time without impacting some of the other things that are on there?
It's a great question. Between DPW and IAM, the first thing we need to do is improve some handicap access to those areas, do some ramps. and we need to rehabilitate the bathrooms. Both of those classrooms, each of those classrooms has 2 single occupancy bathrooms in them that we would need to bring up to code. Fairly straightforward work that we would get done between now and December, when we need to start using that as a warming center overnight. And then from that, we just progressively go to the next thing, probably the gym after that, and then start troubleshooting the School Street wing after that.
I had Mr. Green, and then Mr. Bitone, and I had Ms. Barish. Mr. Green?
Actually, first of all, thanks to the superintendent, because that was one of my questions, was the same, was that my understanding was that the building was uninhabitable. And so to build on his questions, I want to be clear that we are saying that this building, in theory, could be rehabbed. And so when we're discussing long-term building plans, rehabbing the Cummings is an option.
So through the chair, there are some interesting challenges in this building because it was built over the course of several years and is at different levels. So what we're looking to do right now is establish ADA access to that one floor. There is no building, there is no elevator in the building, and the building is essentially on 5 different levels, none of which actually match. Like, some of them are off by like 3 steps. But the distance of those 3 steps wouldn't be enough to build a ramp to make them connected. We would have to have, you know, some extensive work to make this an ADA compliant school. However, the Brown School is also not ADA compliant. So in an emergency, we could move the Brown School students into this building. We could not move any other students into this building because of those issues. The issues with the School Street wing of it and the leaks on that roof are complicated. Could we find some interim stopgap solution just to keep the water from in that so that we could have it for a short duration of time? Yes, we could. Is it worth a full rehabilitation of this building to have this be a fully active building again? Probably not. Much like the Winter Hill building, in terms of overall cost effectiveness and square footage, this building would be better to be raised and redeveloped.
Okay, thank you. And just before I yield, I want to echo Vice Chair Phillips' point that if a motion is made, I want that motion to be explicitly clear that we are not, that nothing in the motion is handing over control, and ideally we have a time limit on even the use, which could obviously be extended if we have a long, cold winter, but.
Through the chair, I think something akin to a license or a permit is more akin to what we're seeking here for this use, for a specified use for a specified period of time. It is not a designated change of the building's ownership.
I had Mr. Bitone and then Ms. Barish.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Director Raish, a few minutes ago, in response to Mr. Green's questions about the timeline for approval of funding by the City Council on moving our food production facility to the Argenziano, you responded that there were some design and delays in the design and development of plans because your staff was spread a little too thin. Given the timeline that you've laid out for this project, it's rather aggressive, looking to get things ready for this coming winter, is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you describe how your and your staff's work on this project might impact work that the district also prioritizes? And you've described the prioritization handed down by the mayor on the Winter Hill and the production facility for
Argenziano.
Yeah, at the Argenziano. Thanks.
Through the chair, good question. We've got one team that's dedicated to the work of the JFK, and then rolling into the retro commissioning at the other buildings. I'm going to keep them dedicated on that. Our interim director of capital projects, Ralph Henry, and I were the ones running the Edgerly this summer. That is wrapping up. It's just a punch list. We've got one major item left to go in there, but we'll get in over the weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. And then we're going to roll right into the establishing work for the Argenziano kitchen. The concept there is that we need to go out to bid, get a contractor signed up for that, do all the submittals, and then hit it hard over winter break when the students aren't there. So largely it's going to be, in terms of a workload effort on that, it's going to be a slow, steady effort, low level, but just continual effort between now and December. And then over December break is going to be very intensive. This one is almost the opposite. We'll be hitting the construction hard probably in October, in November. And then we're out of there in December for it to be used as a warming center right when we shift gears to the Argenziano.
I have Ms. Barish and then Mr. Green. And then Dr. Phillips.
Through you, Chair, to Mr. Raish. As you know, when recent renovations were undertaken at the Edgerly School, it turned out that the valuation of that building had declined such that those renovations tipped us into the point where we would have to make the whole school upgrade, ADA accessible, et cetera. Is there no concern that the coming school is in a similar situation and that the work that is done to prepare it to house people overnight in the winter may send us over the edge?
That's a very good question. For the work that we're going to need to do to make this a warming center is also work centered around ADA compliance. We have to pour a couple of ramps from the Prescott Street side is an ADA ramp. We have to upgrade 4 bathrooms to make them ADA compliant. So ADA compliance work, which is what we're doing here, does not count against that total value. So the essence of what we need to do to turn this into a warming center is exempt from that total.
You want to follow up?
So then, that's great and interesting. I did not realize that improving ADA accessibility did not trigger your ADA accessibility requirement. I guess it makes sense. But, you had mentioned that the city is also interested in rehabbing other sections of the building. So I would assume that removing asbestos floor, for example, which is incredibly expensive, especially if the quotas are full for asbestos dumps, at least that's my understanding. I guess I'm just wondering, is it feasible? Is it realistic to think that this is something that can actually be accomplished? Or is it more the city would like to do this and, I'm not opposed to giving permission to try, but I'm just wondering how realistic it is and whether these issues are being explored and whether we know what the valuation of that building is now so that we don't start the work and then find out that we've I think you know what I'm saying.
Through the chair to the Ward 6 council member, yes. We will have to figure that out. That building has not been evaluated maybe in 20 years. So we're going to have Frank Golden take a look at it and do those calculations. But at least for the initial things to activate that first floor, and then to even occupy the 6 classrooms on the Prescott Street side is very minimal work. It's not going to trigger. Once we start getting into the School Street side, it might get a little bit more complicated.
I believe I had Mr. Green and then Dr. Phillips and then Mr. Vitone and then Ms. Vitone. Mr. Green?
Thank you, through you. Mr. Patone's question reminded me that you're currently working with an interim DCP, which probably back to our first question about bandwidth. And I guess so one of my questions for you is, how short-staffed are you currently? And ballpark estimate, what percentage of the time would you say you were fully staffed?
That's a complicated question. And unfortunately, we're down 2 positions that are desperately needed in capital projects. There is a third position that I would like to fill that isn't as dire. I want to knock on wood. On the engineering division, it sounds like we're about to fill a project manager position, which will be very helpful. And what winds up happening is how I split my time between the 2 divisions. So capital projects has probably had 90 to 95% of my attention for the past 4 months, which means that engineering hasn't had very much of my attention, which isn't great in the long term for water and sewer and roadway stuff. But engineering is so well staffed and such a highly functional machine that we're able to bridge that gap.
Dr. Phillips?
I'm going to throw down a motion, but before I do, Mr. Raish, you said in response to Mr. Green, the city is looking for like a lease type deal. If we're going to set a deadline through, when are we going to set it through? What deadline do you want?
That would be a question for the operator, which would be Health and Human Services, but I would guess until it's warm. So, I mean, just to be on the safe side, say May, because who knows what the climate does anymore?
Perfect. Here's the motion. The school committee hereby authorizes the city to undertake renovations and improvements to the Cummings School in preparation for its use as a winter overnight warming center for unhoused residents through May 2025. This does not release the Cummings School building to the city or indicate its retirement as a school department facility.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Dr. Ackman. And I will go back to the queue when I will add you into the queue, Dr. Ackman? No. Or was it specifically about the motion?
It's about the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just curious about, because this was the language that was given to us, like you adapted the language that was given to us, but specifically they say unhoused residents, and the term resident gives me like a cause for concern. Like I would like to, I assume residents might get some level of priority, but it's like, to me, unhoused individuals deserve warming centers, and I don't know how we identify residents who are unhoused. And so I was wondering if somebody has an option for helping me understand why that is in there, or if there are thoughts from the body about maybe just making a friendly amendment for the word residents to individuals.
Dr. Phillips?
Happy to accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Okay.
There is still a question that is lingering in my mind around what happens in the event that we have a crisis. Is there anything that can be added there in terms of like?
Through the chair, we had already talked amongst ourselves. In the event that we need to bring the Brown over to the Cummings, we would then move the unhoused shelter to the Armory. Yeah, so we've already, and Health and Human Services is structuring their invitation for proposal for that contract operation to facilitate that in that eventuality. So we already have, we're planning to not inhibit the primary use.
So I wonder if that contingency can be put in place,
Yeah, can I add that as a friendly amendment? So in the event of a crisis at another school building, the warming center will be moved to the Armory.
Sounds reasonable. Okay, so Mr. Bitone and Ms. Bitone also wanted to comment. Mr. Bitone?
Thank you, Chair, through you. In the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs' email to us, she identified a number of short-term uses the city is considering. These included the Winter Overnight Warming Center for unhoused individuals, although she said residents, emergency shelter location for community in case of disaster, and teen after-school programming via the Recreation Department. I think each of these obviously are incredibly important uses. I think some of them preclude others, right? We can't use it as a teen center if there are people being housed there. So I guess I would just request clarity from the city on which of these are actually being considered for use. I understand that the motion in front of us is specifically for this winter through May for unhoused individuals. But I would hope for what I'll call the near term, maybe beyond May, for us to consider, once the space is rehabbed, for use as a more permanent space for a teen after-school center. I think that location is phenomenal geographically. Maybe the building could use some work. So that's I guess my rant. Question I had is, we've had some warming centers in the city in the past year or two, and I wonder where those have been located, and whether the city, or why the city isn't considering using those prior facilities for this use, and is now considering the coming. So that's just an underlying question.
I believe they were at the Armory last year, but I'm sure Mr. Raish can. And also, could you just let us know how a overnight warming center is different from a shelter?
That is definitely a question for Karen.
Okay.
We'll have Health and Human Services report back to you. And there are, the committee member from Ward 7 is correct, there are other shelters, particularly in Davis Square, and there, you might have heard that there was some hesitancy towards an expansion of that recently, and that does differ from the warming center. The warming center, last year was the first year that the city offered it. The Homeless Coalition has had shelters, but this was the first time that we've offered a warming center, which is directly in response to the changing climate and the number of unhoused population. And so it was run at the Armory last year, and there were several programmatic problems with that because the Armory has several programs that are active in use at the same time that they were trying to activate it as a warming center, and there was some incompatibility in some of those uses. And so the strong preference for this year was to have a sort of an isolated place or a place where we wouldn't have conflicting programming. And so that's why we want to move it. And again, if we have a coincident disaster at the Brown and we have to, then that's simply something that has to be accommodated. But preferentially, we'd use the vacated space.
Mr. Green, did you have a response? Question?
I was just going to answer the question of what's the difference between a shelter and a warming center. A shelter is, for lack of a better word, a temporary home, and a warming center is a place where you can stay warm overnight, but there's no living accommodations as such.
Okay, I believe I had Ms. Patone.
Thank you, through you, Chair. We've gone through so many things since I raised my hands. I got my head around it. I know this wasn't sent to all the school committee members, but I think there was a request from legal in terms of what this would mean for the school committee in terms of authorizing the use. And there was a recommendation, and this has not been for everyone, but there was a recommendation that the school committee actually puts together an MOU with the city and be very specific about the timeline and the expectations for the use of the space. Are we now precluding that by just doing this motion? I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable that, I still have a lot of questions. I'm not personally ready to vote on this. Super supportive of warming centers and supporting our unhoused community. No question about that, but I don't want to do, and I know everybody's intention is really positive, but what has to happen with the Cummings, there's a lot of like the shuffle game with the balls and the cups, and I never know what's going on with the Cummings, and so I feel a huge amount of responsibility regarding this building, particularly if in the long term this is possibly what we could use for our students if we have a problem with another building. And I guess it's an opportunity to create, at least set an expectation with the city as if the schools want to go ahead and the school committee wants to authorize this, I would love to at least have something in the hopper to have a plan of how we would renovate the building if we needed to use that. Because right now we don't have that. Or maybe the city has that and we're not aware of it. So again, I'm taking pause. I personally don't want to vote on this today. I just want to make sure I didn't lose her. And, is an MOU something that the lawyers are suggesting as opposed to just a straight up simple motion?
At the risk of getting myself fired, which I might welcome at this point, yes, there will be an MOU between the lawyers. The lawyers will get involved and there will be details. But in order for us to start moving forward on this path, I think we need, an action from the school committee so that we have the understanding that we are moving forward in good faith between the city and the school committee on the use of this, right? So I think it is important that we have a motion tonight. IGA Director Neha Singh just said, could I call her and put her up to the phone?
I also got that. So do you want to do that
Yeah,
from there?
let's give
I
that a
also
try.
just got that text from her. I'll have him with you.
While waiting, and forgive me, I'm writing this in real time in my head, but I might propose an amendment then, authorizing the beginning of the process of the renovations, but holding off on the actual transfer of even temporary control pending the completion of the MOU. Because I agree with Mr. Tone. We want to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But I do believe there's work we can move forward on while the lawyers do that work.
Okay, so.
Let's see if this works.
Okay.
Neha?
Hi, Rich. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you.
Apologies for the technical issues. There's a lag, so I believe, Rich, you already addressed this, but I did want to highlight that, yes, our goal is for our law department to work with the district attorneys to hash out some of these questions that you all have brought up regarding the restriction on the timeline. So that MOU/license process is where any questions or conditions that you want to get addressed can be included. Our goal for the vote tonight is just so we can continue to move forward knowing that this is a viable option, but acknowledging that restrictions or conditions that your law department wants to include will be added to the process.
I had Ms. Barish and then Dr. Phillips.
I just wanted to suggest sort of a specific friendly amendment, just a sentence at the end that says, prior to beginning operation as a warming center, the city and school committee or school department. The city and school committee will execute an MOU.
Okay. Dr.
Happy
Phillips,
to
what do you got
accept
for
that
us?
friendly amendment. Do you all want me to read you the motion?
Please do.
Before we vote on it? Here's what I have. Tell me if I'm missing anything. The school committee hereby authorizes the city to undertake renovations and improvements to the Cumming School in preparation for its use as a winter overnight warming center for unhoused residents through May 2025. This does not release the Cumming School building to the city or indicate its retirement as a school department facility. In the event of a crisis at an existing school building, the warming center will be moved to the Armory. Prior to beginning operation as a warming center, the city and school committee will execute an MOU.
Dr. Ackman?
The residents were changed to individuals? Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Patone?
Through the chair. I'm frustrated because we're being rushed and forced to put through a motion that I can't even see. This is a motion that was like 2 lines, and I really appreciate Dr. Phillips putting together a more detailed motion, but I am not comfortable moving this forward. The city has already made all these plans, so clearly they weren't waiting on us to do this work, and I think that's fine, because I think it's a great idea. Okay, he's saying it was last week, but I just don't like to operate like this. I don't think, unless the city is going to say, well, if you don't sign this today, that's going to foil our plans, we're not going to be able to do anything. I don't think we as a school committee should ever be approving something that comes to us in one meeting right then and there, unless there's some sense of urgency that somehow we can't do anything and with this work won't happen. So again, I would push, I guess I'm making the motion to table this until next week.
Second.
Unless I can hear from the city to say, if you table this until whenever our next meeting is, somehow the warming center is going to fall apart, we're never going to be able to do it.
Do you or Neha want to respond?
Neha, did you hear that? I'm going to go. I'm going to.
I can't hear on the phone the comments, but I am trying to listen offline, but there's a lag.
Yeah. So it's sorry. It's actually more a question for Karen, from my perspective.
Mr. Green.
So just as a point of parliamentary procedure, our standing rules are that to vote on it, this meeting will require 2/3 majority anyway. Like it's the onus is on the people who want to vote in it tonight, not on the people who don't want to vote in it tonight. Yeah. And as a matter of tradition, we generally speaking don't do 1-week motions if anyone objects to it.
Yeah, from the construction standpoint, I think I could live with it, but Health and Human Services needs to release the RFP for the operations to get respondents and sign up that contract to have it ready by December. And so the location is important for the structuring of that RFP.
Mr. Green, and then Mr. Bitton.
Well, to that point, respectfully, I know, because we do it as a district, I know season 4, putting out conditional RFPs is a thing you can do. So I don't know that fits my definition of urgency.
Mr. Bitton?
Yeah, I think Mr. Green just made the point I was going to make. So thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Our normal standing rules are not to vote on it until our next meeting. So unless someone makes a motion to suspend the rules, this will be on our agenda for our meeting in 2 weeks. Dr. Ackman? Yep.
Does Ms. Patone need to withdraw her motion to table? As long as you've stated the intent?
Withdrawn. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. So if there is not a motion to suspend the rules, Mr. Green?
The one bone I'm willing to throw the city on this is, do we meet as a committee of the whole at any point in the next 2 weeks? We're not meeting next week at all? All right.
No, we just have I think we just have our regular meeting on September 9th.
All right.
Okay. Ms. Patel?
Through the chair, I would request that some of the knowledge from the lawyer be shared with the whole school committee regarding expectations and an MOU and all that. And I, again, thank you, the superintendent, for taking the initiative to look into that.
Dr. Ackman?
As a yes and, since it is, 2 weeks with, I think, 9 business days in there, as much of a draft as possible that we're permitted to see, like of an MOU, a model MOU, anything like that would also be, is something I would love to see in the packet.
Can I ask a question? So my understanding is that we would have to kind of have some clarity in terms of the terms of engagement to draw an MOU. So if we still have some questions around the details of what are I know you said something about this, the functionality of the building and what is it used for right now and later. So are we thinking about an MOU or the description of how we engage in this process, and what else, just to kind of respond to your question, what are some of the things that will give us some clarity or a different sense of understanding as to how can this process be more clear for everyone? So I'm just trying to think.
Yeah, so the question about can this MOU, for example, consider the city creating a plan to what it would take to upgrade the building in an event of an emergency. I want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to be best prepared for our students in the event we need this building. And what happens is tends to be a can that gets kicked down the road, and it's no shade on the city. The city is trying to do everything they can, but if, as part of this process, we're not just taking the low-hanging fruit and just cleaning up this building, which I know is what they want to do for the warming center, but I want to make sure that we have plans moving forward in an event. I understand they can't renovate the whole building for no reason, but if there was a plan, what could happen if we had to upgrade this building and how long it might take? Is it a 4-week turnaround, a 6-week turnaround, a 6-month turnaround? And I don't know if that's unreasonable, so I understand.
And I just wanted to add a little bit of nuance. We as a district are committed to our families and making sure that we provide equitable access to everyone. I also know that since the spring, we have had 30 of our newcomers that are living under conditions, insecure housing situation, and I don't know how this also relates to that. And so is there a larger part of the conversation? And this might be that it's a separate thing, is that right? But we still have families in our district who are experiencing issues with housing. And again, we're fully committed to making sure that we provide equitable access to everyone. I also know that, that whatever impact this has on the timeline, we are fully committed to that. But I also want to get an understanding of how does this warming centers relate to actually the specific needs that we currently have with our families. And so there are some questions that I'm curious to have some answers.
Mr. Green, did you have your hand up? Okay, I think at this point, this will be on our agenda for our second reading in 2 weeks, hopefully with some of the questions to the answers that have, some answers to the questions that have come up. Okay, with that brings us to our next item of new business, which is the Wellness Policy Procedure Update Memo. Ms. Barish.
I guess you have probably seen the memo that I put in the packet, and the also the actual redlined changes to the procedures associated with our wellness policy. If people have questions about a specific change, I can take a shot at answering it. I think they're fairly straightforward. Let me know. And if I can't answer it, I know who can.
All right, are there any questions for Ms. Barish? There's nothing for us to vote on this evening, correct, Ms. Barish? There's nothing for us to vote on. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you have a question?
No.
Yeah, Ms. Paton?
Thank you, through you, Chair Krepchen. I just wanted to thank Ms. Barish for taking this on. I also, one particular thing was the focus on allergies, and so I think those updates are going to be great. So thank you for doing that.
I just want to make clear, I am our representative on the Wellness Committee, and Caitlin Kelly and lots of other people did most of the work, so cheers to Caitlin and company.
Well, thanks to you and all of the Wellness Committee. With nothing else, that brings us to our next topic, which is the resolution in support of question 2. Mr. Green.
First, I want to apologize to my colleagues that only got the packet today. Obviously, we can vote on it at our next meeting, but it's in keeping with our long-standing traditions of believing in more holistic assessments. For those who may not be aware, there's a ballot item on the ballot this November calling to eliminate the requirement to pass the MCAS to get a high school diploma. In 2017, there were 26 states that did this. We're down to 8. And these include states like Texas, Florida, and Louisiana. So, like, the argument that this is a mark of quality seems a little, well, there's no evidence for it, to be perfectly literal. And more pressingly, and I will put this in the red text because we didn't have the numbers when I had to submit this, since 2017, 22 Somerville high school students have not gotten a diploma because of the MCAS requirement. 22. So I'll put that in as a friendly amendment for second reading, and I'm happy to answer questions. I will just add as a personal note, I have testified on similar motions before New Jersey and Oregon legislatures, both of which have repealed their requirement.
All right, are there any questions or comments? Otherwise, this will be on our agenda for a second reading and vote at our next meeting. Ms. Patone?
Through the chair, thank you to Mr. Green for bringing this forward. This is an opportunity just to briefly, I'd love to hear from the superintendent at some point the status of our work on the MCIEA, the Consortium for Alternative Assessments. That is something that we got involved with maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I think some of that work kind of went in the background during the pandemic, but I would love to hear, A, if we're still involved, B, what is our role, and C, how is this moving forward. This was such an exciting initiative, and as we move forward and do things like make this decision about this ballot measure, I think it's even putting more importance on the idea of alternative assessments and how we really are determining our students are ready for post-high school. So, thank you.
Dr. Kamau?
Through the chair, yes, we actually attended the last meeting that we had, the last retreat. I think they are still in influx. I think there's a transition in the organization itself. There are some challenges. We heard from every of the communities that actually are part of the consortium. Many of them were struggling to kind of continue the momentum, and I think the individual schools actually that were doing the work, was it because their desire and drive to do the work, not because of the consortium itself. I think that they have some great tools. They're still in their infancy. Deshaun and I will be meeting with our union president, Jack Snyder, one of the kind of the founders of the group, and the chair. We'll have a meeting coming soon just to kind of get an understanding of what's our role in the process. We're fully committed to making sure that we create different alternatives for kids, but we also want to make sure that we use some good data points to kind of assess how our kids are making progress. But I do believe that my dream in the future, 5 years probably, is that we have celebrations of learning in which students actually can demonstrate their learning through different avenues. One of the things that we have in our strategic plan is that idea of the portrait of a learner. And once we actually iron that out, we will be able to identify, so what is a measure that really captures the strengths of a learner from K through 12. So that's part of the work that we need to do as a community. But we are fully on board with the idea of making sure that we have different ways to measure students' growth and students' achievement. So we're in the process of like fine-tuning what that looks like for us. Yeah.
Are there any other questions about this resolution? Seeing none, that brings us to the Massachusetts Associations of School Committees contract. Just quick, yes, Dr. Ackman?
I was going to do the motion.
Okay.
I move to authorize the chair to sign the contract with MASC for policy manual development.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Mr. Bitone. Is there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to some field trips, something fun.
I move to approve 60 sixth grade students from the Argenziano School to visit Nature's Classroom in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Travel by bus, student cost is $0, funded by the PTA.
Second. I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Dr. Phillips. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to a diploma request.
I move to authorize, or to approve the diploma request for Jose Bonilla from Norwood, Massachusetts.
Second. I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Dr. Phillips. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations to Jose Bonilla. I have another diploma request.
I move to approve the high school diploma for Arthur Moss of Somerville, Massachusetts.
Motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Mr. Bitone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to some donations. Oh, yes. Congratulations to Arthur Moss.
I move to approve donation of equipment from Parkway Toyota of Boston and West Roxbury, a value of $1,600 to the CT Automotive Program, and a 2009 Nissan Sentra from Parkway Toyota of Boston and West Roxbury, Massachusetts, at a value of $3,850 to the CT Automotive Program.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Patone. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for the cars for the CT program.
Yeah.
That brings us to some grants.
Can I ask a question,
Yes.
actually? Do you, if someone were to have, like, let's say an old 2009 Toyota Camry that may be close to its end of its life, but could still benefit, is that, like, does it need to come from a dealer, or can an individual make a donation of a vehicle to the CT Automotive Program?
Asking for a friend?
When I saw the year, I was like, oh, man.
We'll get back to you with a definitive answer from Mr. Hatchie, but it sounds like an individual can donate.
Thank you. All right. I move to accept with gratitude private donations from Boston University Consortium grants, $5,000 for Math Buddies, building bridges through game design. Boston University Consortium grants $5,000 for creating structures for engaging students in primary source, citizen, and making spaces for creative youth expression. That sounds exciting. Boston University Consortium grant in the amount of $4,398 for project-based learning for multilingual learners. Boston University Consortium grants for the amount of $5,000 for the Healy Families Initiative. Climate Change Program grant for $3,000. A Tufts grant for Winter Hill. Climate Change Program grant and $3,000. A Tufts grant for East Somerville Community School. From the state, a continuation grant, $358,320, FY25 Coordinated Family and Community Engagement Grant, FC number 199 Interpreter Training Course, $35,000, FY25 Interpreter Education Training, Health-Related Courses and Language Services for Nurses, $95,000 Comprehensive Health School Grant, MCC, I'm not going to say that next word, El Sistema, $17,600 after-school music education program. El Sistema, $4,400 after-school music education program. Second installment, high school equivalency test for $6,096, scale continuation grant. Immigrant children and youth, $20,167, enhanced structural opportunities for immigrants, children, and youth.
Second. I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Parrish. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Aye.
That bring, yes.
Just thank you. It's, I know it was a point of pride for the previous full-time superintendent to bring in grants, and it is just thrilling to see it continuing. So, and I know it takes a lot of work, no matter the value, like, so.
Just under $600,000.
What?
Just under $600,000.
That's amazing. But I mean, but I'm saying, like, you know, it takes a lot of work for a $4,400 grant as it does for a, you know, a 17th, like, they all take work, so thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, we have some unfinished business. We have 2 things from the Somerville Schools Policy Manual. Ms. Barish, would you like to give us a quick update?
Sure. So the first one is file EBCFA, which is about face coverings. This policy was initially introduced to our manual in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Rules Committee or Subcommittee has approved changes that continue to allow people to use masks for health reasons, and also say that we will follow guidelines established by the various health organizations, CDC, DPH, DESE. So if you have any questions, let us know. Liron worked on this in partnership with Liz Quartiello, so she has weighed in. And then the next one is file JLCBE, which is Massachusetts Department of Public Health School Immunization Regulations. And this is essentially just a table of the immunizations that are required to attend Somerville Public Schools. They're out of date, and it doesn't make sense to keep them in our manual because it would have to be updated every time there's a change made. So we're just suggesting removing this table from our policy manual and keeping a current list of requirements on the website where it appears currently.
Great. So those are both for a first reading this evening, so they will come back in 2 weeks for a second reading and a vote. So if there is no questions or discussions, we will move on to items from committee members. Do I have any items from committee members? Mr. Green and then Dr. Ackman.
To you, Madam Chair, I don't know what you want to do with it, but I think tonight's meeting we heard a lot of challenges about bandwidth around the buildings issues that I do not think are going to get better anytime soon. And this is before we get into like some of the more technical day-to-day issues that staff and such are going to have about all the building transition. So I would request that the superintendent consider a consultant of some sort to help us as a district manage all of the spending tops we're going to have vis-a-vis the city around buildings for the next couple of years.
Just so I understand, you are requesting that I hire a consultant to increase our capacity around?
I mean, please consider it. I think.
Okay.
I think the city. It sounds like the city's tapped out.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense for us to consider how we're going to liaise with this tapped out city over the next several years around these issues in a way that shouldn't distract you and Dr. Davis, et cetera, from our educational mission.
Yeah. And just to give you some context, within the reorg, we actually put a line there about having some form of support, consultant work, just to strengthen that area. So I definitely am fully aware Amara has really taken center around the work of building issues, but we definitely are talking about that, and we'll keep a close eye in terms of how things are evolving in all the different fronts that we have. So thank you for that. So we'll be thinking about
that. Dr. Ackman.
Thank you.
Mr. Buton.
In this space, towards the end of the last school year, I made a request to clean up the Google Drive, and I assume it was Erica, but whoever did it, like, chef's kiss and deep appreciation. It's so much easier to find stuff. Thank you.
Mr. Buchon?
Thank you, Chair Krupchen, through you. I have 2 items I want to raise real quick. One is a thank you and appreciation to the City Council for the creation of anyone who is here in the City Council chambers can see the delightful new children's area in the corner of our room. It's small, unobtrusive, and filled with children's books, benches. There's a rug. It's adorable, and it, I think, makes this space feel even more welcoming to families and children, as it should be, as an inclusive space for the people. I know this was spearheaded by Councilor Strezzo, and I really appreciate this work and bringing this space into a more inviting atmosphere. So thanks to the City Council for that. And the second thing I just wanted to make everyone aware of is the Joint Committee on School Building Facilities and Maintenance with the City Council has been scheduled. We've got 2 meetings coming up, one on September 25th, which is a Wednesday, and one on Monday, November 18th, both at 6 p.m. And appreciation to the City Council for their partnership, and we look forward to those meetings. Thanks.
Great, thank you for that. Yes.
So I know this is not a new issue, but so I just wanted to kind of engage all of you and welcome in all of our students who are at home, still butterflies in their stomach, waiting to join in on Wednesday or Tuesday next week. So I just wanted to enlist your support to make sure that we send goodbyes to our kids at home. And also I stopped this morning to visit with Dr. Davis with Boston Davis. We stopped in every school to welcome every teacher. We just reminded them that we really wish them a year filled with joy and growth and laughter. And so we want to make sure that our community is ready to welcome our educators as well as our students, and I want you to be part of that process as well.
That is a lovely sentiment and a great way to end our meeting, although we do have condolences. So,
The school committee extends its deepest condolences to the families of Haiti S. Galvao, aunt of Kayla Centello, enrollment health specialist, and Carmine Sacco, father of Carmen Sacco, school department technician, father-in-law of Denise Sacco, special education head clerk, and brother-in-law of Joanne Sacco, retired Somerville Public Schools teacher.
and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.